Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor, especially if you're following our draft episodes here. We have a draft channel, so that's all that we're allowed to talk about there. Otherwise, Eternal comes in and shoos you from the Discord. Check it out. There's a link in the description. You pay $2.99 a month. You get access to 10 channels plus the stage shows, the most heat, information, conversation, consternation, celebration. It's all there on Off the Floor. So check it out. Link in the description. Bypasses the Apple upcharge. Pay the $2.99. Check it out. You get access to everything, and you can cancel at any time. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Includes Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE throughout the NBA playoffs. You're going to want to be on there. I've actually been on a bit of a hot streak lately, so you can follow me for some of these. Well, not too long, but give it a shot for now while I'm still writing this. Put down the code 5. You get $50 to play right away. That's how it works. It is legal in the state of Florida. You get 6 players together. You can play across the sports spectrum, so not just NBA. But of course, that's what will be promoting here. So check it out. It's prizepicks.com. Use the code FIVE. Get your $50 to play right away. And now, today's episode.
Mercy. Luxurious. Heat Nation. Yeah. Mercy and Lago. Down to Biscayne. Yeah. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars. Wearing bubble frogs. Down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing. Got it all band. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's power have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. I got Adel. You can follow him at Digital Adel. We're doing our draft series. This continues during the playoffs. People are asking, why are you doing these? They're still playing. Yes, we get it, but we know that you want both tracks. You want what's going on with the team now, what's going to go on with the team in the future. Also did an episode with Eternal Bast on Tyler Hero's possible extension. So a lot of opinions on that. Curious to see where people come down on it. Particularly after Tyler struggled in game 1. Again, it's not a one-game assessment. Shouldn't necessarily be a one-series assessment, but some people may be looking at it that way. So we decided to focus on that there. We'll also do a straight preview of the game. I'll have either Brady or Alex or maybe both for that one prior to game 2. That one is in Cleveland. Game 2, 7:30 Eastern time. And then, of course, the Heat return for game 3, 1 o'clock on Saturday. But today there was some news. And Adele, I said it on the podcast that we've done previously. The Heat never get any luck in these lotteries. Never. So for those of you who wanted them to have a shot at a top 4 pick by not making the playoffs, they would not have gotten a top 4 pick anyway. It never bounces their way. In this case, they could have gone up as high as 18 with the Golden State pick, either 18, 19, or 20. They got 20. So essentially, they have use of the Golden State pick, but they know what it is now. It's the 20th pick in the draft. They don't have use of their own pick. That one, I guess, was going to be, 15? And that gets turned over to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So the debt has been paid. The Lannisters and the Thunder always collect their debts. So Arya can cross off. Well, she wasn't a Lannister, right? So no, she wasn't. Anyway, it's been a long time since Game of Thrones. The last episode really screwed me up for a while. But the Heat have paid their debts. Okay, so at least that one. They still have one debt to pay to of all teams, the Charlotte Hornets, for the right to have had Terry Rozier on the floor this year. So that's where they're at. They've got the 20th pick in the draft. And Adele, we're going to go through some of these names. You have given us some targets in the event that this happened. But now that we know that it's happened, I'm going to give you a list from your cohort here, Matt Hannafin, who you can follow at MPH_824. I just want to see how similar your list is to his. Here's who he had among those who could be available. Rasheer Fleming, Ben Sarif, who I know you've talked about quite a bit, a foreign player, Danny Wolf, Neek Clifford, Liam McNeely, Carter Bryant, Boogie Fland, Labaron Philon, I believe that's how you pronounce it. This is all assuming they keep their names in the draft, which is no given right now. It's a deep draft. There may be players who think, oh, well, you know what? Come back 1 year. Maybe there's NIL money. Who knows? Come back 1 year, and then we'll be in a weaker draft next year and maybe get paid then. So some of that could happen here. How similar is your list to Matt's?
I mean, it's very similar in ways because we work very closely together almost every other day on these things. However, there's a few things to point out with that list. Rasheer Fleming is probably going to go in the high teens. I don't think he's going to be there because he's a 6'9" wing is what he projects as in the NBA, not really a forward. He's got super long arms, shoots 40+% from three, tracks as a 3-and-D guy almost immediately. Just needs to clean up some IQ things on the defensive end and the dribbling portion. But his list is very close. Now, there's some guys that aren't on there that I would be considering because somebody like Thomas Sorber, for example, the Heat need a backup center. The Heat fans would probably not be very happy with a backup center as the first-round pick, but Sorber's the type of guy, if he can heal from that foot injury he had in college as a freshman, 6'10", vice grips for hands, long arms, excellent footwork, tenacity, rebounds, high IQ defensive player, and can facilitate from the center position. I just don't see how you could pass up on a talent like that. Danny Wolf, for example, could be there. He's another 7-foot guy, 250 pounds, but handles like a guard. He's been fantastic. And then I could see some guys that, when you read the tea leaves of how the Miami Heat typically draft players, there's a kid from Marquette just so happens to fit that prototype mold we tend to talk about. 6'5", 6'6", long arms, can shoot the thing. He's a lefty, plays with his back to the basket as well, so he's pretty good in ISO. And that's Cam Jones, and he's a senior. Older guy, ready to contribute right away, can play on ball and off ball. So there's some guys that are going to be there, some names that are going to be available.
Okay, so let's do a little bit of comparison here because we talked about where he would have gone in this draft this year. Yeah. And you said maybe around the same place, maybe a little bit lower. Not with knowing what we know now, but what was known of him prior to the draft.
Right.
Okay. If you look at like the year they took Jaquez around this area.
Yes.
The year they took Precious around this area, or exactly at this area. I know that gives the Heat fans heebie-jeebies because they could have had Maxey, which again I say 20 teams passed on Maxey. So I when Heat fans are selective about that stuff, I do give the organization a pass on some of these, okay? Because you're not going to hit every time. But Jaquez, it looked like they hit. Now we're not really sure. How similar in terms of talent are the players to Jaime? Because this was a pick. Jovic was picked 27th. Jaime was picked closer to this area.
So it depends on which way you want to go. If you want to go with the older players, there's some more polished older players that are similar to Jaime in terms of polish, but have a little bit better feel offensively. Because Jaime was a forward in college that projected as a wing in the NBA. The one thing that didn't project is the fact that he didn't really have any left to right in his game. It's all linear, just straight to the hoop without any adjustments. These guys are a little bit more skilled and a little bit better offensive IQs. Like if a Tahad Pettiford, for example, is there as a freshman and he's at pick 20 or even a LeBaron Philon, they're the type of guy that can help you in different ways. Philon with point of attack defense, getting to the basket, facilitating, great feel in the P&R. Pettiford's just a bucket. I mean, he is a walking bucket, can facilitate, great feel for the game, doesn't shy away from the big moments, led that Auburn team in all their big games down the stretch, or when the other guys didn't show up. It wasn't Janai Broom. It was Tahad Pettiford off the bench for most of the season. Danny Wolf's another interesting guy. You talk about a guy like Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
He's bigger, though. He's 7 foot 250, but he handles the ball and his body movement is fluid like a guard. He also blocks shots. He gets tons of rebounds. You talk about somebody that you could plug and play with any lineup. Danny Wolf's that type of guy. So any way you want to go, you can kind of go in this draft.
All right. So, and that's what I want to talk about on the other side of this, because there is always these debates. There are always these debates. And the debates are, do you go for position or do you go from BPA with best player available? I am always of the BPA mind. Again, they wouldn't have taken Dwayne Wade if they just went for position 2003, because they had Eddie Jones at that spot. You take the player and you figure out a way to make it work, particularly when you may lose a player that's currently under contract in a year or two anyway, or you have the capability of trading a player, freeing a spot, moving to a different position, all those other kinds of things. But there's also the debate of whether or not you go for a win now or a play now guy. There are no win now guys. A play now guy or more of a developmental guy. And I want to get to that with you after the break, because they've done that different directions now. They took Jovic, who was the developmental project. They took Jaquez, who was supposedly the high ceiling, ready to go project. Same with Larson, where it was a little bit more of an upside play. Okay. Although obviously with talent that allowed him to get in there immediately. So they've gone both directions with this. Now that they seem to have picked a direction as a franchiser, we think, how does that affect who they might take with this spot? Before we get there, though, we do want to mention a great sponsor, the 5 Reasons Sports Network. This is always a good choice. All Pro Construction Builders. If you have a home in South Florida, you want to protect it, right? You want to just leave it there exposed to the conditions, get to hurricane season. If we don't dodge the bullet again, I don't know how we have for the past however many years, but that's not going to last forever. Reach out to Danny and his team. They're at 305-484-4429. That's All Pro Construction Builders, 305-484-4429. Family business, use the best materials, honest contractors, lots of 5-star reviews, based in Miami, although they service down south all the way to the Keys and all the way up to the top of Broward. So check them out. It's All Pro Construction Builders. Again, you get a free estimate and you get 5.5% off your next order with them, off of everything. If you just mentioned 5 on the Floor, 5 Reasons, or the 305 Guys, which is the show that they also sponsor, which I do on the YouTube channel with Alex Dono. All right, let's get to, and again, 305-484-4429. Okay, so the Heat are here, and a lot of fans didn't want this outcome. They wanted to take a high upside player, okay, somebody who could eventually emerge as a number 1 guy. I don't think they're getting it here. Now, what this Warriors pick did, though, is it at least gave them a pick in this draft. If you look at it now, if you had kept Jimmy, you probably would have made the playoffs anyway, if you gave you any effort at all. You ended up making the playoffs. Again, whether fans wanted that or not, we saw the weakness of the play-in group, and the Heat ended up advancing out of it. They are getting some experience for their young players. We're seeing what Ware can do. Can Hero lead a team? There's some information that could be gathered. Here again, I know that's not necessarily what all fans wanted. But ultimately, all they really did with where they ended up finishing was giving up 5 picks in this draft. I mean, because they got the Golden State pick to protect them. And again, that pick was top 10 protected, so they would have gotten it anyway. But, it was good work by Andy and Nick and others who executed that trade to make sure that they got a pick that wouldn't be what Golden State was trying to give them, which was basically a repackaged Cleveland pick, which would have been 30th. Okay, so you each got the 20th pick. Okay, and that's where you're at right now. Or 29th or 30th would have been the Cleveland pick. Okay, so in light of that, though, is it fair to say that the odds are small, if they keep the pick, that they are getting a franchise-type player at 20, right?
The odds are very small. Once you get outside the top 10, it's a roll of the dice, and your odds are like you're rolling 75 dice. So right. it's not very good odds for sure.
But let me give you this. Let me give you the counter, and then you go to this, okay? Giannis was picked 15th. Jokic was picked in the second round, right? Where was Shea go? Shea was a lottery pick, but he wasn't like a high lottery pick, right? Wasn't he?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly where Shea went, but he wasn't like the number 1 pick in the draft or anything like that.
All right, and then he was traded, of course, after. But he was picked 11th. Okay, so you're talking about 11th, 15th. Jokic was what, 47th, something in the 40s,
something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking about guys who are considered franchise players. Now, Tatum and Brown were both top 5. We know how Boston acquired those picks. You take a look at. Dame way back was a mid to late lottery pick. I'm trying to think of other guys. Steph, of course, it was 6th, 7th after 3 other point guards in the draft, two of which were taken by David Kahn, who's no longer working in basketball. So again, there are different places you can get these players, but the odds are not great that you're going to get a franchise guy at 20. With the construction of the roster as it is now, and the assumption that Bam and Tyler will be here next year, would you take a ready-to-play guy now, or are you comfortable bringing in a guy who requires a little bit more development, sort of as you make decisions on Jovic, Ware, and some of the others?
It depends on what you value and what you want, like skill set wise. Like if Ben Serif is there, I'm taking Ben Serif because of his ability to facilitate, get paint touches, to be able to play on the fast break, roll into P&Rs, that sort of thing. If it's one of the smaller guys, like say Traore falls or Boogie Fland is there, you're even a Tahad Pettiford, you're going to have trouble with your point of attack defense, which you already have issues with. And there's going to be other moves and trades that are going to have to be made. So it really just depends on what you're looking for in their skill set. I'm looking for a facilitator. If any of these guys can shoot a good percentage from three or develop into that, you can project them, develop into that, put rim pressure and facilitate, I'm looking for that. But if you want to go with some ready-made players, you're talking about a Cam Jones or a Nick Clifford, guys like that, I could see the argument for it as well, but you're going to still lose your facilitation. Like Cam Jones can facilitate a little bit, but he's not going to be your, Tyler Kolek from last draft, for example, was like a pure facilitating guard. These guys aren't that. So if you're going to take some projects, they could take a season or two, and that's something you got to decide whether you're going to stomach. So in my opinion, I'm taking a facilitating guard. If he has size, I'm not opposed to it. Like Cam Jones, because he's a lights-out shooter typically, I'm not opposed to him. He's an older guy. He can play right away. He's got long arms, decent defensively. Like I said, Todd Pettiford has such high ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely take him in a heartbeat. But Ben Serif is really who I'm zeroing in on. But I have a hard time believing he gets out of the teens. I have a very hard time believing he gets out of the teens.
Especially with some of the hype that we're hearing now. Now, let me ask you this to just follow up on it. The fact that they have one pick, but they also are not in this bind of having an unprotected pick next year. Like that debt has been cleared, as I mentioned. Right. To me, that allows you to maybe take a higher upside, longer in development player. Because one of the concerns was if you had that unprotected pick last year, you have to add impact right away because to keep yourself out of the non-playoff situation. I mean, at least get in the play-in and give yourself a chance to get in the playoffs so that you're not giving up an unprotected pick. But now that's not the case. But on the flip side, now you don't have two picks. Whereas before I thought if you had two picks, you maybe take one developmental project and you take one ready-to-play project, but you had to get at least one ready-to-play project.
Right.
Now I don't think the ready-to-play project is quite as necessary unless you don't feel you have another way to get one. And that's why I'm saying like maybe, a lower end. But look, again, Josh Richardson didn't work out. Thomas Bryant didn't really work out, but Alec Burks did work out. Maybe you can find another minimum guy who can help. Obviously, Davion, if you re-sign him to something reasonable, that's a player you didn't have last year. Wiggins is going to be there most likely unless he's traded for like a big fish like Durant. And I'll get to that to close. I want to get to the Durant question. But do you? It does seem to me like they shouldn't be as pressured to take someone just like, say, a Jaquez type. Okay, he can play right away, but in the third year, we're not going to be seeing much growth because there's really not much growth to get out of him. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with it to a point, but also I want to say that the 2026 draft pick could also be special just like this draft. Like there's some dudes in that draft, like people that, maybe like draft heads are talking about, but like casual fans don't know about, like Tonde Yesufu. That guy is going to be outstanding. Like everybody's talking about AJ DeBonsa, which they should for the 2026 draft. But there's some dudes in that 2026 draft that are going to be outstanding. So you're not pressured in this draft, in my opinion, because I don't see a path unless a number one superstar that is still a number one is going to be available for you to acquire. So if you take a higher upside guy and he needs to take time to develop, fine, because I don't see you competing for championship in 2026 anyway. The same thing with if you take the ready to play guy, he could be part of that nest or maybe the guy from the 2026 draft. So I look at it, you can go either way, and I don't think it makes a difference in the calculus.
Okay, because my thought has always been you take the higher upside guy if you're a developmental organization like the Heat, because you want to maximize as much as possible. We're seeing that with Davion right now. Like, this is a lottery pick that they're working with. And even though he has limitations offensively, you're seeing how much better he can get with them. Whereas the Heat have typically, taken these sort of one skill set. And I know people will say, well, Davion's a defensive player, but there is some offensive ability there. And that helped him make him a lottery pick. But typically they've taken these guys to the G League who have like one skill, and it's like, okay, we're going to maximize that one skill and make the guy passable in other areas. And then other teams get the player and overpay the player. And it's like buyer beware, because it's that Heat black magic. Strus is like the one guy, okay, who has averted that. I know people said Gabe rebounded this year a little bit, and he did. But again, it was a struggle from there. But from the Magruders to all the Whiteside, all these guys, okay, they go somewhere else and they don't perform, okay? But and again, it's because they came in with limited upsides, and the Heat maximize that upside, and then that's all there is. Yeah. I would rather they take higher upside and try to develop those players. And I think looking back, if you look back at the Bam and Hero picks, I don't think Hero was considered to be a high upside pick. He basically came in and had a great shooting workout with the Heat. Didn't play a lot in Kentucky his first half of that season, and then kind of came on as one of their leading scorers in the second half of that year. Bam, the comparison was to Clint Capella. I mean, it wasn't to, a multi-time All-Star and Olympian. But obviously Bam has physical tools that they were able to tap into. Tyler's physical tools are a little more limited. But he's maximized them with skill and with work. Okay. So that's where they're at. Now the question is, do you pay him to maximize further? Is there anything else there? But I think them getting a higher upside guy, almost irregardless of position, but I'm with you on the idea of taking someone who can create. They need creation. That is the big, they cannot be relying on Spo's dribble handoffs, okay, and all this other kind of stuff to create offense. They need someone who can just go get bucket or go get it for somebody else. And that would take pressure off Tyler. But the other problem is if you're investing in Tyler long term, then the creator that you're getting has to be able to defend. And that's the trick here, is can they find the two-way guy who they can put out there with Tyler to protect Tyler defensively in that way, and at the same time, he can also get a bucket to relieve pressure off Hero. We'll see if they can get that at 20. Final question here, and we'll do more of this as we go forward. KD. I don't believe they're getting KD. I know they're going to inquire about KD. I don't know what's going on in Phoenix. Ishbia says he's not involved. That's a lie. Okay, he's handling everything. I don't know that James Jones is going to survive with Phoenix past this period of time. It does not appear so. I think he's come back to South Florida, live at his house. We'll see what he does next. And Mark Bartelstein's son, Josh Bartelstein, who's there, I don't know if he's going to survive anyway. So basically, Ishbia's going to be making the decisions. He was asking for crazy return for KD at the deadline from the Heat, which was like where Hero, Jaquez, Jovic, picks, swaps, the whole thing. The Heat were basically offering the Jimmy contract, which they had at the time, swap our problem for your problem, if that's the way you want to look at it, Jovic and a first. That's what they were offering. I don't think the Heat would offer much more than that. They don't have the Jimmy contract to offer anymore. They have the Wiggins contract to offer and then other parts. So I don't think this is happening. I think Durant and Houston's more likely. It seems like they may get bounced in the first round, which I kind of figured would happen against Golden State. Is the best possible matchup for the Warriors. And then they're going to say, we need a star. They're going to go get KD, and they have like 10 young players they can offer. But if they did get KD and they don't give up Tyler or Bam, which I don't think they would, then what? Do you change the calculus? Because we saw in 2004, they drafted, 2004, they drafted Darrell Wright over Jameer Nelson to do the long game play instead of taking a 4-year college player from St. Joe's, and ended up regretting it after they got Shaq. They would have rather had Jameer. How do you play this?
If you feel like you're going to lose Tyler, I feel like you're getting, again, keep saying best player available, but you still need facilitation and point of attack defense regardless. I just think it would make point of attack defense a little bit less of a need. And I think you go with the guy you feel you can develop to be the higher upside guy. You hit on something very important earlier. Davion Mitchell, for example, was a lottery pick, and they were able to build him into something. But he had a base of something that they already know is winning basketball. Plays really hard, super athletic, quick as a hiccup. These are all things you can work with and build around. So I think you're looking for a framework of something like that. Somebody that can have a frame that can fill out, has traits, either they're very fast or an amazing shooter or amazing offensive ability, like Tahad Pettiford. Even though he's small, he has long arms, big hands, lightning quick, great in the P&R. Like somebody like that they can work on his defense as they go, and he can give you that creation. He can fit with anybody, no matter who you bring in.
Well, we've seen them take the flyers on higher upside guys, even in the G League lately. Josh Christopher, RJ Hampton, they haven't really hit on one yet. But again, these are former first-round picks who had flaws, and with both of them is kind of efficiency and erratic play, that kind of stuff. And they've tried to coach him up, but so far they haven't seen a payoff from Christopher, and they saw no payoff for Hampton and let him go. But again, with Davion, they have seen a payoff, and I would like to see them, take the higher upside flyer, because like you said, this team is not winning a title next year. So, and the fan base, I think, will stick with them if they feel there's a direction, and if they see the young players getting better and they start to build with those players. You look, it took basically Davion 2 weeks to become a fan favorite here. The next draft pick could become that as you start to build forward. So I don't want to see them take a low upside backup center. And I know that's not what you're saying that the backup center you were talking about is. He's not, but don't do that. Okay, just to plug a hole. It's not necessary. Go get that guy and go get that guy for the minimum in free agency.
You bring up a good point, because if Sorber's not there, the backup centers past Sorber, you're reaching. At 20, you'll be really reaching. So you got to go wing or guard, in my opinion, if like Sorber doesn't fall because of medicals. Like that's the only way Sorber falls, in my opinion, anyways, medicals. But
okay, and the other thing to acknowledge is the Heat have a different draft board than everybody else. Like there's certain characteristics that they like that they will focus on that other teams will not. And so when they tell you we had this guy higher on the board, yes, there's a little bit of salesmanship there, late night, on draft night, but some of it is true. Like there's certain players they take off their board that other teams don't take off their board. If they don't think a guy has the makeup, they're not going to have that guy on their board. And also, after what they just dealt with Jimmy, who clearly had the basketball makeup, okay, but they also are looking for, I think, a certain type of personality now. And you saw that with Mitchell, Wiggins, who can be a little too laissez-faire for my taste at times. And that's been the shot against him. Mitchell certainly isn't. And Kyle Anderson, though, I think they're looking for a certain level of basketball IQ and also a guy who can fit in a team concept and will defend. And again, Jimmy was the biggest dog they've ever had, and I mean that in the best possible way. But I don't think they're looking for the disruption this time. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think they're looking for something a little calmer and then still try to win, which, again, it's not always easy. Adel, appreciate it. We'll continue to do episodes on this as we go forward. Check out the Hero episode that Eternal and I did. As I said, I'll grab Alex or Brady for a preview going into Game 2, Heat in Cleveland. And we have all these off days, so we'll be doing episodes during all these off days as long as this lasts. Have a good one, everybody.
Take it easy.